topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Join your host, who is a multiple #1 international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer. She's the founder of Genuinely Hyping You and has 30 years experience of helping people step into their genuine, authentic power. And now, here is Gina Gardner, your host of Leadership for Life.
Hello there and welcome to today's show. As always, I've got a really exciting guest who'll be joining me later on. When you look around the world, it's very easy to imagine that, we don't have any impact, that we have very little that we can do about the big issues. And in some ways, that's true. And yet, every choice we make, everything we choose to do or not, and how and when we choose to do it, has an impact on something or someone or both. If you listen to the news, you'll recognize that global warming and the impact of global warming is having a huge detrimental effect to the climate around the world. Now, if you're living on high ground well away from the sea, they won't see the devastation that's created by rising water or by seasonal storms. But if you live on the coast and you are affected by hurricane or typhoon or any of the very extreme winds and weathers and weather patterns that are going on, you will be acutely aware that things are shifting. And you may be of the belief that actually we as humans are having very little impact on the climate. I have to disagree. And when you look at the speed of change, photographs of the two poles and how ice is melting and the impact that's having on rising water, you have to ask yourself, what are we doing as human beings? We're the only creatures on Earth who have had an incredibly big impact on the world on which we live. We are hungry for resources, and over the years, over the last 200 or 300 years, we've raped the land, and you can see the impact of that wherever you go. At a local level, the need for housing, because the population has risen, means that lots and lots of really first-class arable and farming land is being taken up for housing, and that's had an effect on drainage and all sorts of things. How we eat makes a difference. I was watching a program called Country File, which is a very popular program on a Sunday evening in the UK, and it looks at the farming world. And there was a discussion going on by a well-known farmer who was one of the hosts of the show, who has been farming conventionally, and a farmer who is using what he calls new methods, but in reality, returning to many of the old ways of farming. One style of farming requires huge amounts of fertilizers, chemical fertilizers. The other relies on a very different way of planting so that you don't need the chemical fertilizers. And in the past, until fairly recently, it was cheaper to put the chemical fertilizers on to get the return in order to make a profit. But the huge hike in cost of fertilizers, because they're based on the fossil fuels, has meant that it's become less and less economic to do that. But part of the program showed you soil samples taken from the fields of both farmers and looked at the organisms that were within the soil, looked at the health of the soil, its capacity to hold on to moisture, for example. And it was very clear that the health of the farm, which had been using old methods, planting in a different way, using no fertilizers other than that of animals which were left to graze on the last of the crops and so on. The health of that soil was hugely better. I read a report about how the population of bees is being decimated around the world. And if we have no bees, there's going to be no us, because how on earth would we feed ourselves if there were no bees? My guest, Sandeep Nath, is someone who has created a whole way of being called Renewalism. And we're going to talk about that after the break. But as I say, everything you do has an impact. And I don't want to preach at you, and I know that there are far more that I can do. But I do believe that there are changes that you can make that aren't difficult, that don't get in the way of the quality of your life. In fact, they add to it, that can make a positive difference on your environment, on the climate as a whole. Simple things like recycling, for example, eating differently. And we're going to talk about that after the break. Now, as you know, we are very proud to be members of B1G1, Buy One, Give One. And that's an organisation set up for businesses to really create a practice of kindness, compassion and giving. Now, we always ask our guests which project of the month that they would like us to donate to. But if you're a business out there, just recognise that B1G1 can also be great for business. I use the example of the coffee shop, a coffee shop selling coffee and doing nothing to help other people. And next door or a little down the road, a coffee shop that for every cup of coffee, they donate a day of clean water to somewhere in the world where they haven't got the privilege of opening a tap and getting clean water any time of the day or night. It costs 1 cent. Now, which of those coffee shops would you rather go into? So if you're a business owner, just think about how you might use B1G1 to create a win-win advantage. Win for you in that it's great marketing, but a win for the people on the end of the project. And what I love about B1G1 is that they don't take any of your money to support the administration. They've got a separate charitable arm to do that. That all of the projects are incredibly well policed, so you know that your money is going to do exactly what it says, and it's not being leached into some oligarch's pocket. But think about your practice. If you are in business, how positively does your business impact on the world and on other people? If you're an individual, then what are you doing? I've often said in this show, if you think that you can't make a difference, you think you're too small and insignificant, just think about the impact a mosquito has when it's trapped in your room at night. And you can hear it buzzing, but you can't see the little beggar. Or it actually gets to you and bites you, and you've got a huge itchy swelling the next morning. Individually, we can make a difference. We can make a difference in all sorts of ways. I talk about a living legacy. I believe that every word we speak, how and when we speak it, or whether we speak it at all, every action we take or not, how and when we take it, leaves a living legacy. So what's your legacy going to be? How do you speak to other people? Do you speak kindly? Do you speak kindly to yourself? What legacy are you creating for you in terms of your confidence and self-worth? Because everything we do is a choice, and even not choosing is a choice. But most people act habitually, unconsciously. They don't think at all. So have you done an audit of your habits, your practices, your language, your actions recently? Because doing so enables you to be aware. And awareness is the first stage. And understanding the impact of that is the second. And both of those stages are incredibly important. But without action, they don't mean anything. So what action are you taking? What actions could you shift just a little and find that they make a huge difference? You know, it's all too easy to make up the story that it's down to everybody else, when the reality is it's down to each of us. And if our politicians are not making the right decisions, you know, the saying, it only takes good men to be, and women, to be silent for bad things to happen. And I have brutally abused that saying, but you get the gist. So think about you, moment by moment in your life. How do you show up? What are the choices you're making? How can you make a really positive difference? After the break, I'm going to introduce my guest to you and his amazing work. So don't go away.
You have been listening to Gina Gardner on Leadership for Life. We'll be back after this quick break. Want to get the best out of life personally and professionally? Are you ready to step into a life which excites and fulfills you? Well, the right place for you is Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. We will share with you stories from inspiring people, a wide range of guest experts, and lots of practical strategies to help you get the very best out of your personal and professional life. Leadership for Life is a radio and TV show focused on helping you live a happier, more successful, and fulfilling life. Join international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer, Gina Gardner, live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Become the leader of your own life. Gina Gardner's #1 international best-selling book, Thriving Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success, and Fulfillment, provides you with the foundational principles on which to become the best leader of your own life. It's available as an ebook, paperback, hardback, and as an audio from genuinely-u.com, or also from Amazon. Every one of the principles have been proven to work for the countless people who have used them, including the author. Now, let's put them to work for you. If you're ready to discover your true leadership life design, accelerate your journey with an invitation to join Gina for a Leadership for Life VIP Day. Choose your journey of self-discovery where Gina will help you navigate your way to happiness, success, and fulfillment. To find out more, email Gina at genuinely-u.com. Welcome back to Leadership for Life. Here is your host, Gina Gardner.
Hello there. I met my guest Sandeep Nath a little while ago and I was absolutely intrigued to find out more about renewalism. It was not a term that I was familiar with. I understand renewal, but not renewalism. And I wanted to know what it meant in the context of Sandeep's work. So let me read you his bio. He's an author, speaker, and coach who believes that our inner power manifests our outer reality. He helps build inner power through alignment of the body, mind, and spirit, which eliminates stress and increases health, happiness, and harmony. He's delivered talks and workshops across 4 continents to people over 35 nationalities. Sandeep is currently spearheading the Renewalism movement to redesign modern businesses and life using time-tested ancient Oriental wisdom principles. And so I'd like to welcome to the show, Sandeep Nath. Hello there and welcome.
Thank you, Gina. It was so awesome listening to you say all that in the last 10 minutes. I'm so privileged to be on this program with your listeners and viewers. Thank you for having me here.
It's a real pleasure. Before we start talking about renewalism, tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to renewalism.
Thank you. So my background, like many of you, was that of the guy who's told to get good grades, study hard, get a good job. I got a good job, but I didn't find myself sticking in that environment of a job and a boss. So I became an entrepreneur. and
Okay.
I ran a consulting company for a good 15, 20 years actually. But sometime during the course of this, it came to me that we seem to be creating more problems in the world than we were solving.
Mm-hmm.
I got that feeling. And, for example, our reliance on technology, to take off from what you were mentioning about the bees and the farmer, and this is something that we talk about in the book Renewal as well. We tend to think that technology is going to have the solutions to everything. And if there are no bees, then there will be drones, and they will pollinate. And if there is no soil, then we will have some chemical regenerated soil. And if there are no human beings, then we'll have bio beings, and all sorts of things. But that's all very distant from what's what's the order of nature. So suddenly, with the coronavirus, the power of nature was brought starkly into our lives.
Yeah, it was indeed. Yes.
And that was the time when I was editing this book, Renewal, and I thought that before we regress into our old habits, and I love the fact that you use that word habits repeatedly in the first 10 minutes, because that's what renewal is about. It's something that each one of us can do, because we are the ones who control our habits. And we've changed our habits. We may not have noticed it, but we have suddenly become more mindful. Like you use the word awareness, we've become more mindful of masks and of personal hygiene and physical distancing and things like that. Now we must learn to carry that forward to the next level of consumption and whatever else. But to come back to your question, so I got this feeling that we weren't we weren't moving in the right direction somehow, and there could be another direction, and that got me to explore what we've known for centuries, in fact millennia, from Taoism, from Zen, from Tibetan Buddhism, and from the Vedas in India. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm based in India, and so I have easy access to a lot of gurus, the genuine gurus. And I was just very, very fortunate to learn from them and distill that knowledge over the last 15 years. And that's brought about this whole concept and the whole set of habits that can help us organically renew as a person, as a society, and as corporates and businesses and organizations.
It was interesting, when the pandemic, the first lockdown in the UK came, when within weeks we saw a resurgence of nature.
Yeah.
There were more animals and birds around, that they had started to enter urban areas in a way that they had never done before.
Yeah.
And I think people began to really value the outside, the natural world, that when they were cooped up in their houses, that their mental health, that they recognized it was significantly improved by getting out in nature. I love my garden. I love being in nature. You can't see, but behind me, I look on, I've got an internal courtyard, which is full of spring flowers burgeoning, and it gives me huge pleasure. And interestingly, I see my garden as the window of my soul. It's where I go and I recalibrate myself.
Yes.
And I think many people have lost that. And I think it's one of the reasons why there's so much anxiety and depression about. But enough of me. Talk us through what you mean by renewalism, and how does that manifest itself in terms of day-to-day living?
So that's great that you touched upon this, because when we are in oneness with nature, we recalibrate ourselves within. You use the words inner power when you were introducing me, and the power is within us. We
Yes.
just disconnect from it because of the shells that we build around our inner core.
Mm.
And the idea is to, like an onion, peel off those shells and discover what we really are. And when we
Mhm.
do that, we connect the inside with the outside, with the nature, with the divinity all around us, and we become divinity. So that's the long and short of it. We are divinity. We just have to rediscover it. And we how do we do that? By cutting off the traps, the entrappings of possessions and projections and various things that we attach unnecessary value to. So when we connect with nature, we connect at five levels actually.
Okay.
The body is the first thing, because we are very familiar with the body. We are housed in the body, and we are very comfortable, and we're also very aware of the body. We have a little cut in the finger, and that's all we're obsessed with all through the day, you know. A little few kilos around the waist, and we are obsessed with that for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But
We won't talk about that. No, no, no.
but yeah. But
Yeah.
then we have the mind, and the mind itself is at three levels: the conscious mind, the ego mind, which makes us think things through and gives us a sense of importance, and we plan things, we use our logic. And then we have the subconscious mind, which is our experiences and stuff like feelings, what we assimilate in our early years and then use as our beliefs, mostly limiting, for prioritizing and deciding on our later years. And there is the unconscious mind, which is what works for us when we are not even thinking.
Mm.
Like your heart is beating, your skin is doing various things, and it's been happening since the time you were born.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of decisions that we take unconsciously based on that mind. And then we have the spirit. So the body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah.
And at the spirit level is where this it gets subtler and subtler, as you might notice. So the subtlest connection is where we have this connection with divinity. And the more that we get disconnected from our own true nature, the more we start getting disconnected with the nature around us. And the more we stop bothering about the subtler and subtler impacts that we're having. And that's what you started today's show with, which the solution to which is coming back to the point of original subtlety, the original energy, the spirit that we are born as, we're born with. Kids are pure energy. Kids are very natural. They're embodied spirits. And then we start putting all these shells on us, and we cut ourselves away from nature around us and our own true nature. So that's the beginning. To
I
stop,
think, yeah. Sorry
yeah,
to interrupt you. You carry on. No, I'll come in at the end. Do carry on.
yeah, just to conclude, to stop thinking that it's about us, which is probably where the ego mind and the body is, which we're more obsessed with, and it's more about what's our interplay, and that interplay decides everything in personal relations, in financial relations, in environmental relations, and everything about what you were talking about the planet. Over to you.
It's very interesting. You talk about young children. I find it quite fascinating. I started off life as a teacher and then became a principal or head teacher. And I was in the world of education for 30 years, nearly 30 years. And one of the things that really struck me was that you see very small children who are learning to walk or learning to feed themselves. There is no thought, does my bottom look big in this nappy? Or I've fallen down, what will people think? They just know what they want and they get up and do it. There's joy and awe and wonder in a leaf or in anything that's new.
Yeah.
And then we as adults start to put on layer upon layer of conditioning. Don't do that, you'll look silly. Don't do that. Or, you need to do that. And very quickly, we learn how to be our not selves.
Yeah.
We learn to be what we think other people want us to be. How does moving forward, so let's say I'm somebody living in a city. I haven't got a garden and green space is in short supply. What would your suggestion be in terms of how do they learn about renewalism and how do they engage in renewalism in order to find themselves again?
Wonderful. So we always have nature within us.
Okay.
Would you agree with that here?
I
We
do,
are.
but I think many of our listeners may feel that is a bit of a strange concept. And of course, my concept could be very different to yours. So I'm really interested in how you would explain that.
So I just say that we are a part of nature.
Yeah.
And what's within us is the most important thing that we need to first connect with. Because of the distractions in the world around us, the cell phones and the games and the meetings and the jobs and the so many things to do, we lose that inner connection.
Mm.
But having renewed to make that inner connection and seek that alignment within of body, minds, and spirit, we are well on our way to making the outer connections with whatever aspect of nature there may be. Nature is not necessarily just trees and plants and mountains and lakes and rivers. It's good to have that. And you've been there. And when you've been there, you have experienced an energetic interplay. You do feel more wonderful. That's why you go for these holidays, right? You go to the beach, you go to the mountains, because you get that pure natural energy that powers you. You would have observed that you can walk for kilometers and kilometers in a forest or in the countryside, but you can't do as much in the concrete jungle. You can't do as much, maybe just 5 blocks, 10 blocks, and you get tired because you're not taking in energy from your surroundings, from the environment. Whereas when you are in the nature, in the countryside, you are taking in that energy.
So let me
So,
take you back to that person who's living in a high-rise flat
yeah,
in the middle of an urban area, and that they
coming
want
just
to
to
make
them.
that connection. I just feel that they will need a bit of help and ideas in terms of how they do that, bearing in
I was
mind
coming
that.
just to that. Yes.
Thank you.
So, so when you are in that high-rise flat, you've gone for that vacation maybe 2 years ago, and that was the last time you could do that. You want to see how you can build habits that connect you with your inside. So, what's happening inside us? One of the most important things that's happening inside us is that we are taking in air from around us, processing it, processing the oxygen, and energizing our cells. We get energy, right? The mitochondria store that energy and use it. And that's happening because of what we breathe in. Another thing that we do is we eat. And the quality and quantity of what we eat and the frequency and volume of what we breathe determine our interplay in a high-rise flat or anywhere, determine our interplay with the outer nature around us.
Yeah.
So you want to be sure that you are breathing right, and we could go into details of that if that's. We could even have viewers do an exercise together if you like, Gina. But
Okay.
you want to show that you know how to breathe right, because think about it. Everything that you do in life, you've learned to do it.
Hmm.
Anything whatever your profession might be, whatever, even if you just a homemaker and you're just cooking, you learn from somebody.
Yes.
But the one thing that you have to do necessarily till the day you die, you don't have any formal training on, and that is to breathe.
Yes. That's very true. So come on
So
then, let's do an exercise in terms of breathing before we move on, because I don't want there to be no time at the end to do that. So how can
okay.
people learn to breathe effectively in a way that's going to give them a greater connection?
Excellent. Thank you. So I'm going to challenge you, viewers, to observe when you breathe in. Breathe, close your mouth and breathe in from the nostrils and breathe in fully. Okay, so take a nice slow breath and observe what happens to your belly. Okay, so let's breathe in. And you can breathe out. Now, when you breathe in, check, has the belly come out or not? If your belly was flat or if it went in, then you've not been breathing right. If it comes out, what it indicates is that you are breathing in and filling your lungs fully. And as a consequence of the lungs being fully filled, the diaphragm is being pushed down. And because there's no rib cage in front of the stomach, the belly comes out. You're not breathing into the belly, but you're breathing into all of your lungs. Now, I've found in companies, especially, 1% in three has a flat stomach, or worse still, the belly goes in. And what does that tell us? It tells us that the person is shallow breathing. They're actually fooling their lungs into believing by pushing the belly in, they put the diaphragm up and the lungs contract. So they're actually fooling the lungs into believing that's all the space, and they fill that space. And it's very shallow breathing, and people who just finish their runs, or some people just talk like this.
It's
And
interesting, isn't it? Because if you want to access your solution finding right side of your brain, it's a simple process of belly breathing will actually shift you from your logical left brain, which tends to catastrophize and look at either or, into a place where you can find your creativity and your solution finding. And, it also supports good relationships. So breathing has so many different aspects that can really help. And those of you that are listening, if you are really anxious, the chances are you're doing very shallow breathing, as you were talking about. And deep breathing can actually calm you down. It has an effect on the vagus nerve and calms you down. So it's so important, and yet nobody talks about it.
And let me say this, that if you find yourself breathing wrongly, make a habit of stopping whatever you do. In fact, even if you don't find yourself breathing wrongly, just make this habit of stopping whatever you do every hour or 2 hours. And for 30 seconds, take in 3 breaths in complete awareness. Feel the air go in, feel the belly come out, push the belly in and expel the air out. 10 seconds per cycle, 3 cycles, 30 seconds. You will feel calmer in your spirit. You
Mm-hmm.
will feel more in control of your mind, because we have a racing mind, the overthinking mind, where you give a pattern, interrupt,
Yeah.
because every hour you stop and change that pattern. So you stop working in circles, and you will oxygenate your body.
Mm.
So your body, mind, spirit will start coming in alignment just with that one thing.
It's amazing, isn't it? Something that is seemingly so simple, but has such a profound effect. I'm really conscious of time, and one of the things I'd like to move on to is, you talk about renewalism in the context of businesses. So what does that, and what shape does that take? Let's say our listeners and our viewers are business owners, entrepreneurs. So how will renewalism support and help them moving forward?
Wow. So As we've just been speaking about the concept of alignment of body, mind, spirit, and
Yeah.
that is what takes stress away, that's what brings us in a new state of being. The body, mind, and spirit have equivalents in organizations. And if we bring those in alignment, then we do away with organizational stress and make for more performance, productivity, and profitability eventually. And what are the equivalents of body, mind, spirit in an organization? Well, think about it. It's the three P's. The body are the people, the processes are the mind, and the purpose is the spirit.
Mhm.
So we're looking at people, purpose, process, and how does that work out within your teams, within your micro organizations, and how does that align with the global, multinational, whatever size of organization it might roll out to have become. And just working in those little modules and realigning those, starting with people, of course, changes everything and gets us to refocus on what is the purpose that's relevant. Let's say the pandemic hit us, it could have caused us to change why we're in business.
Yes.
A lot of businesses may not do as well with the same business model that they had pre-pandemic. So much has changed, so much technology has come in, so much communications has um, progressed. How does that change your business? Are you ready to renew? So that's the starting point, Gina.
Do you know, I love the idea of the word renewal rather than pivot. Lots of businesses talk about pivoting. Of course, if you pivot long enough, you end up back where you started. Whereas if you're renewing, it is about looking at what you do already, I believe, and looking at what is going to serve us moving forward. And what
Absolutely.
will we protect and keep, and what are the things that we need to change? What are the things we need to revisit? What are the things that are completely new? So how do people get hold of you if they need to, if they're interested in engaging with you personally or as a business?
Well, renewalism would be a great place to start. And that is where I talk about how corporates can get involved, how educational institutions can get involved. What is the starting point of what am looking at as a movement? Because this is about human consciousness. This is about where are we going in the future
Mm.
with our own survival and our own exploitation as the key issue. So
Yes.
my thought here is that if we could be so concerned about animal exploitation and animal survival, and therefore the veganism movement could sort of catch people's attention, and that's also a habit change thing, mind you,
Yeah.
then renewalism is something that concerns us more directly. So that's a good starting point, and you could reach us from the pages there, or you could reach me directly, and I'd love that at sandeepnath.com. And on the top right corner, you've got my social links as well. But just write into me. I'd love to know that you were on this program with Gina and that we could do things together. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Before we just finish with B1G1, is there anything that I've not asked you or not given you an opportunity to say that you think people need to hear before we bring the interview to a close?
Well, if I could take a minute on that, because I did touch on it, and maybe viewers may have got onto that. That the two things that we do to connect outer nature with inner nature is one, we breathe, and we talked about that at length, and the other is we eat.
Mm.
And I'd like us to be mindful of what we eat, how we consume, and how close to nature that is. Because a lot of the stuff that we are consuming these days is so far from nature. It's processed, it's refined, it's
Mm.
ultra jazzed up in factories.
Mm.
And please, please understand that the reason we are such an unhealthy society, and increasingly so, is because of the stuff we're putting in our mouths.
I couldn't agree with you more. I was Jason Bale is a famous juicer. He uses organic fruit and vegetables to juice, and I was reading his book, and his comment really highlighted it for me. He said, if you read the ingredient label and it sounds more like it's come out of a laboratory than a kitchen, don't touch it. And when you look at the ingredient level, and in the UK, for example, everything has to be listed. Some of them sound as if they're not only out of a laboratory, but they're out of a spaceship, because they're just gobbledygook.
Yes.
So
If you can't pronounce it, definitely don't put it.
Don't eat it. Yeah. And I think there are so many diseases that are preventable if you only eat sensibly and naturally. So you've offered us great advice. Thank you very much. So remind people what your book's called.
So it's renewal. And the byline is your unexpected role in saving the planet. It's your role.
Brilliant.
Because it's your habits.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Now, I ask every guest to choose from a list normally of 3 projects each month. But because of what's going on in the Ukraine, I've added a 4th one this month. And you have chosen the project that we're going to donate to on behalf of you are children affected by the war in the Ukraine. And so that donation will be going forward I do it at the end of every month on your behalf to help children in what is a desperate circumstance. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you. That's so kind and such a wonderful gesture, Gina. I pray that your tribe increases.
Thank you very much indeed. Don't go away. I'll see you after the break. But thanks again, Sandeep.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Gina Gardner on Leadership for Life. We'll be back after this quick break. Want to get the best out of life personally and professionally? Are you ready to step into a life which excites and fulfills you? Well, the right place for you is Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. We will share with you stories from inspiring people, a wide range of guest experts, and lots of practical strategies to help you get the very best out of your personal and professional life. Leadership for Life is a radio and TV show focused on helping you live a happier, more successful, and fulfilling life. Join international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer, Gina Gardner, live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Become the leader of your own life. Gina Gardner's #1 international best-selling book, Thriving Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success, and Fulfillment, provides you with the foundational principles on which to become the best leader of your own life. It's available as an ebook, paperback, hardback, and as an audio from genuinely-u.com, or also from Amazon. Every one of the principles have been proven to work for the countless people who have used them, including the author. Now, let's put them to work for you. If you're ready to discover your true leadership life design, accelerate your journey with an invitation to join Gina for Leadership for Life VIP Day. Choose your journey of self-discovery where Gina will help you navigate your way to happiness, success, and fulfillment. To find out more, email Gina at genuinely-u.com. Welcome back to Leadership for Life. Here is your host, Gina Gardner.
So, what are you going to do to make that difference? Are you going to eat more healthily? If your diet is all beige and that you're overweight, ultimately you have the opportunity to be healthier. Now, journaling is something that can be really helpful. And if you look on my Amazon page, Gina Gardner, the Amazon page, there are lots of journals there around a whole range of things. But my garden, the journal around finding the essence of yourself is there. And also, Your Life in Their Hands is a really good journal, particularly around health and helping yourself to live a much healthier life. But I wanted to spend the last few minutes talking to you about something I was working on this afternoon. Now, over the years, I've helped many, many people with their career, helping them develop leadership and to get promotions, but also at the other end of the scale when people were just beginning. And I was just putting something together for people who are about to leave school, college, university, because now is the time to prepare for when you leave. And many of those people are currently doing exams or preparing for exams, and they will be leaving in the next 2 or 3 months to start their life professionally. And I just thought I would bring it to your attention. Here is a book called Kickstart Your Career. And it's designed to help people create great CVs, to engage in interviews confidently so that they make a great first impression, because the decisions are made within the first couple of minutes if you walk into the room. But once you actually got the job, how do you become the consummate professional? How do you let people recognize that you are someone who is worth nurturing, and that you have the potential to go on to better and greater things? And so this is a book that's got a distillation of over 30 years experience in developing people right from the outset. Now, I can't remember which golfer it was who said, it's interesting, the more I practice, the luckier I get. And that's true of pretty well anything. That in order to be good at something, you first have to practice. The 4 levels of competency. The unconscious incompetent doesn't know how bad they are. The conscious incompetent knows that they haven't yet learned how to be confident and competent at something. So they're aware. The conscious competent knows they have to do something, but to do that with active conscious thought. And the unconscious competent, or the master, who does things without actually having to think about it. Now, if you prepare well, you can actually hit the ground running, and you can do things in a much more professional and productive way. And Kickstart Your Career is designed to help you do that. And there's lots of themes in there. Giving great presentations, chairing meetings effectively, managing your time and your boss effectively, effective listening, but also talks about creating a CV that's going to stand out and how to have a great interview, and then planning and anticipation. Lots and lots of stuff there. And that comes from all of those years of developing and nurturing potential so that you can actually make a difference. It has a partner book for managers, which is Manage Your Staff More Effectively, which looks at many of the same themes, but actually from the point of view of how do you get the best out of people. And so I wanted to bring those to your attention, because now is the time to start preparing. And if you are already in a position, but you want to get ahead, then these 2 books are designed to help you get the positive advantage so that you can get promotion effectively and quickly, and not be promoted in a way that leaves you exposed, but promoted and make the most of your obvious potential. So those books are available to you. They're on Amazon. You'll find all of the journals there as well, and you'll also find Sandeep's book on Amazon. So please do take action. Take action by the way in which you breathe, the way in which you eat, the choices that you make. And I would say, make an active choice to invest in yourself, to become the very best version of you, to become the leader of your own life. So thanks so much for joining me. Do please get people to download and to listen to the replay, both of the TV show and of the radio. Remember that we donate to B1G1 for people, the number of people that don't download, how many listeners we get. We are donating to encourage you and also to help other people. Ultimately, everything you do is your choice. Everything. Even not choosing is a choice. So why not choose to be the leader of your own life. Take care now. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to The Leadership for Life with your host, Gina Gardner. Make sure you tune in to W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV next Thursday and every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for more Leadership for Life. If you missed any part of this episode or just want to hear or see it again, you can find the archive of the TV show on Talk 4 TV's YouTube channel and the podcast of The Leadership for Life on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, and wherever you listen to your podcasts.